I have one
Yeah.
other hard question for you, and I agree with everything you just said. But I did want to specifically ask you in the responsibility area of like fairness and equity, because I feel like this is a an age old question about democracy, right? When we have these predictability machines that kind of majority rules again. And so we've seen really dumb stuff as these tools take off, where if you ask it to make a picture of a salesperson, it makes an old white guy. And if
Yes.
you ask it to make a picture of a tech person, you get a beard and a man bun on a white guy. And
Yes.
so
For me,
that
was great.
just is not very interesting. But then they tweak the settings a little bit and you ask it to make a picture of a Nazi and it makes it a minority
Yeah.
because we're trying to
And they're like,
artificially
really?
put stuff in. You're like, ah, that's not right either. So, how have you seen us grow up in this as the tools get better? Or are there still things that we need to look out for as far as fairness in what we're generating or creating?
Yeah, so there's actually a really great term. So there's what right now most of us are in what I call kind of day one of AI. It's like baby tiger mode, right? Where you're building with a model, it's creating cute, nice outcomes. You're pretty satisfied with what it's doing, but it's not really at production scale, right? You're not using it for every customer, you're not using it for every use case. As you approach production scale, three things tend to happen. I call it SAT. The first thing is that you run into security vulnerabilities, right? So when you look at like the 95% of projects that are failing right now, they all have one, like either security or the second one is accuracy, right? Like you said, like how does it know what truth is? Or the final one is trust. I think an interesting fact about artificial intelligence right now is that some research was just recently done on all the projects that are in progress. And they said 95% of projects were failing. But the reason, like there were five or six reasons, none of them were technical. But the one that had the longest tail was actually a hesitancy of customers, employees, and staff to even use the AI. And so
Yeah.
the reason these AI systems were failing was because people were not using them. And I think that's a big part of thinking through between day one when you get started and day two when you're actually using this like interwoven into the DNA of your business. How are you going to make sure that you do it in a way that's secure, which means you honor the data privacy of your customers, your employees, and your company? How do you make sure it's right and accurate, right? That's a huge, and that is all you. Like as a human, that is the human first approach is you own what truth is. The model doesn't know. It's going to do what you tell it. And if you don't tell it, it's going to default to the internet, which we talked about. Well, it's not truth either. So it's our responsibility to tell the truth. And only then do we build a system people can trust. But that work, security, accuracy, and trust, is often done by a team. And I give this to you so you can go look it up if you want to, but it's
Yeah.
called AI red teaming. And this is like an
Mhm.
actual team of people. But what I love about this team is that they're not engineers, they're not data scientists. They are extremely diverse and inclusive individuals, all walks of life. So at Amazon Alexa, for example, when we were building Alexa in the early days, I was the only mom on the team. I was also the only caregiver taking care of my dad on the team. So I had a very different perspective. But as a result, I built different stuff. I built mindfulness apps and kindness apps and prayer apps. And everyone told me I was crazy on my team. They're like, nobody needs mindfulness in the kitchen. This is dumb. Why are you until 2 million people showed up and used my skill, and I ranked to the top of the list, and they're like, "Oh, I guess people." So this is why when you're
Yeah.
building an AI system, you need different people with different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, some with education, some without education, moms, cat owners, dog owners, like as many diverse perspectives as possible, because they're gonna push you to develop capability in your AI systems that you haven't thought of, that you won't think of, because it's not even in your brain to contemplate. And that's what I think we're starting to see in these models that end up being unfair, unjust, that are sexist, racist, hurt people on purpose, is because when they were tested, they tested it with all people that kind of thought the same way. And when you think the same way, nobody even thinks to ask, a question about racism because they're not
Right.
thinking about racism. So you need people who are kind of willing and brave enough and courageous enough to kind of ask those hard questions to prove that the model can scale, with all of those considerations in place.
That's a really great answer. I appreciate that thoughtfulness and yeah, I hope more people hear that it's usually not malicious, it's ignorant and that you just didn't
Yes.
even think to ask those questions or check
Yes.
those settings before you did it. And that's why the team has to be there because you're not going to think about
That's
that.
right.
That's
And
not in
there is some good
your
news. Well, there is a tool available. So as the technology has evolved, Microsoft, for example, built an AI red teaming agent. And so its job is it's an LLM and it basically investigates every request to look for these things. So that's the good news of like, you know,
we're
waiting a
getting
little
there. We're
bit.
growing
Is
up a
that
little bit.
yeah, yeah. These technologies, there's AI red teaming, content safety. There's all these LLMs that are popping up to actually help you do this work. And they partner with you. Again, you're still the human saying, I want to do this. But now you have other AI systems that actually can help you weed through every request into your model and find out, is there anything, unscrupulous happening and how do you stop that before it impacts your business in a negative way?
Awesome.